Joining us now is Joden Belafato, Technology Experience Architect at UC Merced. With nearly 2 decades at the university, Joden has been at the forefront of AV and IT evolution, moving from hands-on operational support to a more strategic role while shaping the future of technology-enhanced spaces. His focus extends beyond AV systems to a broader campus-wide technology experience, which ensures seamless integration between digital applications and physical environments. At UC Merced, where a small team supports a fast-growing campus, Joden has played a key role in designing innovative and classic learning spaces like lecture halls and teal rooms. The next exciting challenges will be a teaching in the round lecture hall in the newly announced Classroom and Office Building 3, and deploying a full AV over IP system in their medical education building, which is currently under construction. UC Merced's technology efforts in these spaces are redefining how students and facility interact with technology in the classroom and beyond. Joden, welcome to the podcast. UC Merced has rapidly expanded. You started with 3 instructional buildings when you opened in 2005, and then there was the 2020 project that brought 13 new buildings put up in just 3 years. Tell us, what's been the biggest challenge in scaling AV across such a large campus at that point, and how do you manage it?
We manage it very carefully. A lot of it is just around setting expectations with the community, sort of what technology is and how it works. And then for that project in particular, I think where we stuck the landing was really on consistency and standards. So like there was an incredible volume of rooms that had to be brought online in this project, but we stuck to a room templates effectively, and that allowed it to basically be that you were kind of stamping room designs on room types. And so that consistency meant equipment lists were similar and easier to digest for the installer. And then for the community, they had the kind of satisfaction of every room they went into was a consistent experience. They weren't sort of surprised like, oh no, the classroom is radically different than a conference room. There was a lot of a Venn diagram of those features and technology.
Well, you mentioned consistency, and I find interesting because not just because I disagree with it, I completely agree with it, but you have some interesting innovative spaces there. You have teaching in the round, right? Which for those who don't know is a unique design that's popped up in campuses, on other UC campuses. And I'm curious to know, what problems do you think you were solving by doing things in the round, and how does AV technology enhance the engagement in that kind of unique environment?
So this is a bit of an aspirational thing. That teaching in the round room, other UCs have successfully executed it. UC Merced will be building its first in the announced COB3 building. And we've been looking through the designs and whatnot. And I think that where sometimes missed when doing AV in higher ed is all the pedagogy stuff that has to kind of be in that orbit. It's not just, oh, can I make an image display 70 feet away and everyone can read it? Is that image intelligible? Is it engaging? Is it equitable access, equal viewing for, a lecture hall of 400 people? And really, the best and worst part of AV is that it adheres to the laws of physics. There's so much truth in what we do. Light travels in certain ways, sound travels in certain ways. And when people ask you to do impossible things, you can just say, well, not unless you can change the laws of physics. And in lecture halls, that distance is really where we struggle pedagogically with engagement with students. The screen is far away, the instructor's far away. And so what teaching in the round attempts to solve is bringing the class closer to the instructor. So the instructor is positioned in the middle of this type of room, and then the students are in orbit around them. The furthest seats are equal distant in that respect. And so that's great because the teacher's able to maintain better sort of eye contact, engagement. It keeps them moving around the room. And the students feel closer. Where it challenges you is it kind of leans on technology to support it. You lose whiteboards by teaching in the middle. So now it's, how do you bring a written medium to all the people in that room in an equitable and interesting way? So the screens are basically mounted in a ring above the seating area. And so a student kind of looks across the instructor at the display opposite of them. So they get the instructor in their view and the content in their view. So there's a lot of good connective tissue there from the instructional delivery to the artifacts that are supporting. that instructional delivery. A unique twist that we're doing in ours is two things. Where the proscenium, sort of how it elevates, is 2 rows of chairs per tier. And what this is going to allow students to do is turn around. So they'll be able to quickly turn and do sort of think, pair, share groups or work together collaboratively on an assignment the instructor's given them. The other big thing that we're doing is we're dividing the room into quadrants. And so the
Mhm.
instructor will sort of have this natural geography that they can lean on, this quadrant, work on this quadrant, work on that. So it brings a little bit of physical support to really good instructional delivery, and just really picks up on all the things that we struggle with in AV to increase the fidelity of the experience for the learner.
You mentioned that because of setups in the round, that the use of a whiteboard or a chalkboard, which we recently we had a call earlier where they said the instructors refused to move off chalkboards. So, what is kind of the process to go through to say we have this new technology? It's proven to work. It's proven to help in the educational process. We need you to kind of move to the technology that makes learning more accessible.
Um, Sometimes it's just that what you just said. Like sometimes it's just helping people understand that there is a disequity or there isn't accessibility to all the students in the class. And that's a compelling user story for most people and most faculty. So you start with that. And then you try to find the technology that isn't so onerous or burdensome to sort of facilitate the same mechanism. And I don't want to pitch for a particular company or product, but there is a company that makes um, a document camera, visual presenter, depending on what you call it. And they kind of picked up on this on their own. And I was really happy with that. And basically, instead of the surface of that being just a plastic surface, they put a magnetic, like laminate whiteboard on the bottom. And so, what this has really been amazing for us is okay, you like writing on whiteboards. This is still a whiteboard. In fact, it's more comfortable. You don't have to write like this. You can just write like this, like you do on a piece of paper, and then showing how they can manipulate that image and zoom it and make it bigger or move it around, things that they just can't do on a whiteboard because it's inked on a surface. And so I think that bringing them into that conversation, showing them the flexibility and the opportunity that technology presents with the students in the room, let alone that technology is incredible for helping students attending hybrid or remote. Because anyone who's tried to install a PTZ camera in a classroom will tell you it's basically impossible to actually capture a whiteboard. We lie to ourselves and say that we can do it, but it always is kind of disappointing because of backlighting and everything else. Using a document camera is just a signal. It's just HDMI. It goes in,
Mhm.
it gets processed, split, send, and the people on Zoom and the people in the classroom get an equitable, really nice presentation of these written things that the faculty are trying to provide them.
I feel like this is almost a 21st century overhead projector, right? You're
Yeah.
sitting down there and you're writing like you would on a piece of paper, and it's simply then magnifying it. And then in this case, not projecting, it's sending a signal to a monitor, but same concept. I
Yep.
love how that has come around almost full circle.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's
In
100% the analogy we use for some faculty. We talk about overhead projectors and I'm like, oh, an overhead projector. Okay.
a common technology that we're talking to clients about quite a bit is AV over IP. And I know your new medical education building is fully AV over IP. What do you think is what pushed UC Merced kind of over the edge to adopt AV over IP? And I'd love to hear what kind of technical challenges you faced downwind of that.
Um, I don't know if this is a unique story to UC Merced, but as instructional spaces have had an increasing demand to be more technically robust, it introduces a liability that you eventually have to kind of replace this technology and upgrade this technology. And so, what we have learned, a lesson learned from previous capital projects, and certainly the 2020 project, was kind of get as far ahead of that as you can in those capital project moments because a good example that I can go backwards in time to is the analog sunset. And there was this really awkward part in capital projects where you're like, am I going to put HDMI in this building or am I going to stick with VGA because it's tried and true? And what a lot of people found was because they didn't just take that leap of faith, they suddenly basically had buildings that were obsolete in 3 years. And that's really
Mhm.
problematic. And so a big reason why is AV over IP was very much a bleeding edge, cutting edge technology, but it's now kind of like drifting into the meaty part of that bell curve as the platform becomes more mature. In fact, the industry is now trying to sort of come up with an industry standard, which would be great because the differentiation between the manufacturers is always a struggle. So
Uh,
that was the big reason. It's a capital project. We kind of forecast ahead. What is the emerging technology? What is the technology that we're likely to install when this building comes online? And AV over IP, this was the building that finally was like, this is the one. This is what we're going to have to do. I think the technological challenge goes without saying. It's network. People really underestimate the bandwidth requirements, I think, of video and audio because we don't tend to measure them that way as an industry or as a body. We talk about resolution, we talk about color depth, we talk about refresh rate, and all of those things drive you towards a megabit or gigabit per second measurement, but we don't talk about it in those terms. And so I think even some AV people get a little wide eyed and are like, oh my God, every endpoint is 1 gigabit per second. What? Like, how do you support that? And that is a challenge that we face with this building. And we hope we've addressed it.
you bring up a great point. As we've seen over the past few decades, the melding of media and the melding of IT have become almost one. You can't do one without the other. So you mentioned the throughput issues or throughput concerns, but how did you work with your IT stakeholders to make sure that this was being deployed and everyone was aware of how this would benefit them and how you'd have to kind of engineer with that in mind?
So here's the dirty little secret, I guess, about UC Merced. The AV team reports to the CIO. So conveniently, all of the stuff that I unfortunately hear about from my peers or other higher education institutions, I don't struggle with as much. When I need something from the network team or to collaborate with them on something, they're just across the, metaphorical hall. And if there are struggles in reconciling the audiovisual or those types of needs with what the network can support, the reporting structure kind of funnels up all the same way. And I think that is a serious consideration a lot of institutions are going to have to make now. Like a lot of AV departments will sometimes report to the undergrad ed division or the provost of their school, a lot of academic driven decision making. And that's important. I don't want people to lose sight of that. And I think UC Merced has found a bit of a sweet spot. IT finds a way to nicely integrate with the academic and learning apparatuses in our institution, which gives some level of confidence that IT can manage that because ultimately at the end of the day it is a technology to be managed. So I just approached my network architect and was like, okay, let's start doing some napkin work. Like we got to figure out this many endpoints, this many da-da-das. And, we took all that information and went back to our construction and design and architects and we're like, this is what the building is going to need to do to successfully support this technology modality. And I think they learned some interesting lessons along the way too. I think this architect wasn't as familiar with the idea. I'm kind of talking around it, but like we are basically building AV IDFs. We're going to be the AV racks and stuff will be completely out of the room and they will be built almost like a classic network closet, centralizing and consolidating all of that. So it's going to be a real technological shift and a real cultural shift, honestly, and we're kind of excited about it in a lot of ways.
Let's move one layer up. Let's move a little bit away from the zeros and ones and more on the kind of user experience, the instructor experience. So when you start automating AV with things like smart touch panels and auto tracking cameras, can you walk us through what a real classroom use case is and how it's improving the experience for the students?
So it really comes down to just how long does it take to get the class going in our mind. In some of the research on instructional delivery and instructional support, when you look at the faculty side of the house, there's a lot of good research showing this concept of cognitive load. And this isn't like a new thing, psychiatrists and other cognitive scientists have talked about it, but they're just now really understanding what it means in the instructional delivery sense. Faculty have a lot on their minds when they walk into a classroom. What are they teaching? Where are their PowerPoints? Where are their instructional materials? Where's the textbook? Who's here today? Am I in the right room? Like, there's just enough logistical stuff to get into the room and get that class together, let alone, oh God, now I got to turn the projector on. Now I got to plug in my laptop. And so, from our point of view, philosophically, as long as I can remember, we've always been about turnkey. Even in 2005, every classroom had a touch panel in it, every one. And like that blew my peers away. They're like, you did what? And it's like, and the reason we did that was, again, it's user experience. Before that became kind of like the $5 word that it is now, and is my job now, frankly. We were all thinking about it. And so it goes back to the 2020 project in some ways too. And we just sort of elevated and did the version 2.0 of this. We put a touch panel in every room. The UI of the touch panel was the same in every room. A teacher had the confidence. I walk into one classroom, I walk into the next classroom, that touch panel is going to look largely the same. And the really only distinguishing characteristics would be what features are available. So if you walk into a nice, like intimate 30-person seat setting, touch panel may not give you a whole lot of options. Turn it on to show your laptop, turn it on to show a document camera, volume control, very minimal. But you go into a lecture hall setting, well, now you've got lecture capture. Now you've got, and the consistency around those controls and experiences, I think, gives our faculty some level of confidence when they're already struggling with that cognitive load. Well, if I walk in the classroom and I press the laptop button, the projectors will turn on, the screens will come down, the shades will lower on the windows, the volume on the microphones will wake up, the volume on the program speakers will wake up, and all I got to do is plug in the HDMI cable, and I have some degree of confidence that everything is just kind of going to work. And I think we do pretty well at that. Where I will admit it's a struggle is as facilities age. If you can't keep up with that sort of level of technological sophistication with dollars and cents, it can sometimes be a little overwhelming and problematic if you struggle with dying technology and what it means to manually operate these spaces when the automation is unavailable.
It seems like overwhelmingly that the faculty enjoys the fact that there's consistency amongst the different rooms. Were there any other kind of unexpected adoption challenges?
I think it's a lot about personal preference.
Okay.
Another, I guess, dirty secret, and maybe I shouldn't couch it this way, but it's my rhetoric, is we're all GE, we're all general or GA, depending on what type of walk of life you're from, general assignment. So all of our classrooms can be used by anyone. Chemistry can use them, sociology can use them, physics can use them, history can use them. And there is something sort of freeing about that, because I know at other universities, they build chemistry lecture halls. They build, cognitive science labs. And there's a little bit of that here, but overall, our complement of spaces, any teacher can walk in any space, and it's really driven by how many pupils are they trying to address at any one time.
So in the pre-show, we were talking about the expectations of AV manufacturers and integrators like us here at KeyCode when it comes to higher education. There's this challenge that's not talked a lot about with the scale of enterprise and the resiliency that's needed, but also having the kind of intimacy of the residential experience, right? That folks are used to utilizing either on their smartphone or at home. You need a way to make things simple and easy and approachable, but also have the resilience and redundancy to keep teaching. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a drum that I beat pretty often when I talk to manufacturers or integrators such as yourselves, where, from an AV support point of view, our users or our customers, if you will, they expect 5 nines. They expect a classroom to be running 99.999% of the time, and anything less than that is failure. And I'm being a little hyperbolic, but that's not completely untrue. And when you're talking about a university, the mission is literally to deliver classes. And now we have technologies like AV over IP. Like, isn't it wonderful? You can install a network switch and you can drive 8 rooms for one network switch. That is an awesome technological achievement. It keeps me up at night, because if that one network switch goes down, I lose 8 classrooms. And I get the savings in scale, but it's a real bear to wrestle with. And I'm struggling when I talk to even manufacturers around AV over IP, what do I do in these sort of maybe edge casey, but real scenarios? These happen all the time. Pieces of equipment die. You're leaving us kind of in the lurch and struggling to explain to customers why one piece of equipment brings down so much stuff. And I've yet to meet a manufacturer who's like, oh, that's easy, you'll just. It's always, oh, gosh, yeah, that could be a real pickle. And I just wish there was a little more understanding of that risk, that scale, but then again, that expectation of uptime. And then the other little side piece of that is what you're talking about, that intimacy. AV at home is where almost everyone experiences AV. It's not, classroom is just what they do for their job, but really they spend the time watching their favorite shows or whatever in the living room. And it's so easy, just pick up my phone and go, whoop, and now it's on the TV. Isn't this a fun YouTube clip? But faculty and students want it to be that easy in the classroom. And so it's very hard to kind of thread the needle of this very personal thing not being possible potentially and where you want it most.
So what's next for UC Merced in terms of AV? What is the maybe not bleeding edge, but leading edge of tech that you're looking to either implement, or is there still a problem that needs solving?
I'll answer both. The problem needs solving and where we're going, and we're going there because it's a problem no one has solved. I did a presentation for the campus around sort of trying to give them the basics of AV in a very funny and whimsical way. And one of the things I tried to explain to them was ports. We've seen a lot in our day. We had, on the front end, BNC, HDMI, USB-C, display port, mini HDMI. And the bane of my existence is adapters. They are terrible. No one seems to make the one that works with every device, except maybe Apple. But I also can't stomach paying $100 for an adapter in 150 classrooms. So in order to solve that problem, we are really seriously exploring some of the, I hesitate to use the term wireless, but wireless cordless AV. Again, I'm not pitching a platform, but one that has caught our attention is like Merced Solstice. The ability to kind of not only very quickly get your stuff, like that intimate experience we were talking about, like get it from my computer to the display with just a client app, negotiating that little bit. It's pretty compelling. No cables to fight with. Oh, this adapter doesn't work with Macs. It works with Lenovo's. It works with Dell's. Oh, I didn't bring my adapter. Well, we may have an adapter. It all goes away because the transmission is all being done, and everyone's like, well, HD or USB-C is going to solve all that. Here's my skepticism for the USB-C folks. Look at a laptop. Look at a Lenovo. Look at a Dell. Look at an HP. Hell, look at a Mac. Look at that USB-C port and tell me what it does. And the answer is you can't. You don't know. Sometimes, like on a Mac, there's some nicety that they do Thunderbolt ports everywhere. So no matter what port you plug into, you're going to get that video experience. But on some PC laptops, that's not the case. It's only for power delivery. It's only for plugging in a thumb drive. And so there's still a real problem that doesn't solve, because the port, ironically, being so universal and ubiquitous, creates a different challenge, which is, well, which version of that port do I have? Because from the outside, it all looks exactly the same. And so put all that away, and let's see if we can really leverage these sort of wireless or client-driven connections as a way to solve that, because it is a sore spot, believe it or not. We get a lot of tickets open for adapters. It's yeah, dizzying.
Man, I would love to keep talking about this all afternoon, but unfortunately our time is limited.
Yep.
So where can listeners learn more about UC Merced, or what the heck you're doing?
Gosh, I would recommend, checking out our websites. Honestly, the IT website, it.ucmerced.edu. We're working on some things there. We're trying to revitalize it, but that does have a pretty decent section around our spaces and what we're doing. My new job is around some of the storytelling, and so I'm working with my team to really, how do we bring these stories to audiences, even if it's just our community, let alone larger audiences like this one. So yeah, keep an eye on the IT website. We post news there. That's kind of where we're at the moment. We'll see where we go from there for other stuff, but that's the best place, I think.
Well, outstanding. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope we can have you back soon on another podcast.
Yeah, it's a great time. Thanks so much.